You're hanging out in the House of Sunny podcast, where it's always sunny, mostly because of your host, comedian and YouTuber, Sunny Loman. Want to know what Sunny and her friends are thinking about this week? Well, here she is, Sunny Loman.
Welcome. I'm here with sidekick Doug from The Rational Capitalist. Hey, Doug.
Hello.
And our special guest today is John Hawkins, creator of the mega successful blog Right Wing News, murdered by Facebook algorithms. Hey, John. Thanks for coming on the show.
That's a heck of an intro. Thank you.
After we talk to John a little bit about what happened on his site, we're going to talk Obama portraits, the MSM treatment of Kim Yo Jong, the dragon lady from North Korea. Can anyone explain these names to me? Is Kim a boy's name or a girl's name? Because
they need more names in Korea.
What? They're all Kim.
They need more words. Yeah, I know. Lee and Kim. That's it.
I need there to be a difference in the male-female because I'm transphobic. So it's very annoying that it's the same name.
I guess, and the Olympics are in Pyeongchang, and the
PF
North
Chang.
Korean is Pyongyang. So I guess people were flying into the wrong airport or
You're
something.
kidding. No,
They got to get
weren't
more
really going
words
to North
over
Korea,
there.
were they? Yeah, something's wrong.
Horrible.
We'd get it if we were Korean. Anyway, and if there's time toward the end of the show, we're going to get into rule number 2 of Jordan Peterson's new book, 12 Rules for Life. Rule 2 is treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping. And luckily enough, John Hawkins is reading that chapter right now, so it totally worked out.
It did. I just finished it maybe
cool.
about an hour ago.
Then you're going to be way more
there you
fresh on it than me because I'm up to like chapter 5. So I had to kind of it's so dense, right, John? The writing is so dense.
I've read a lot of psychology books because I'm a psych major and I love that stuff. I'm not overly impressed with Jordan Peterson so far. I mean, I keep waiting for this part where it's like, wow, this guy is the most amazing person ever. And I haven't seen it yet. I mean, I don't know. I guess we'll see. I think he's okay. Yeah. I'm not trashing him or anything. It's just I'm not sitting here going, "Wow, this is revolutionary." Anything I've read so far.
Well, maybe that's a sign that John's healthy psychologically, and for the rest of us, we're like, "Wow,
right?
You should be confident. Whoa,
you should take care of yourself." Well, but I do find his writing, his rule 2, and we're already talking about it. His rule 2 is. It's written a certain way, but then within the chapter, he gets into so much stuff that's kind of unrelated to that and then somehow circles back to that. So I had to go back and kind of refresh on all the points he's making in that chapter because he makes many points and they're sort of loosely related to his main theme of the chapter. So that's what I find and they get really complicated and, in this chapter in particular, there's a ton of religious text stuff. So yes. For me, that was really, I don't know any of that. So that's all new. And so I found it to be a difficult chapter to skim.
I thought what his phrasing on it was beautiful. And I agree with it. I think the point he was making is that so often, if it's like a dog or a child or someone else, we're so amazingly compassionate. And then with ourselves, we're not the same way.
Yes.
And so much of that comes from the fact that a lot of times we don't realize how much we dislike ourselves and are ashamed of things because we have this, I remember talking to this woman once and she was stunningly beautiful. I mean, I was going out with her, so that tells you something. So she was really hot, but she was a little older, and she was so down on her looks, and I was like, why are you so down? You're the best looking woman in the room. She's like, yeah, but I compare myself to what I look like when I was 25. And I'm not, I've got blemishes, I've got this, I've got that. And it's like, it's so weird to me how often I talk to people who are just amazingly successful and you look at them, you go, wow, this person is incredible. And they don't really like themselves. It's weird how self-esteem so often is almost completely unrelated to the person's personal traits and how they compare to other people. And I think he made some good points in there that, if we showed ourselves the same kind of compassion that we showed to other people, we would be so much better off.
It's not the first time we've heard that advice either. I mean, it's been packaged many ways. But anyway, first, before we got to get into all this other stuff. We'll get into that book. But first, we're going to get to the voicemail because we have some jokes waiting for us there. And this is our segment where we play the jokes people leave on our voice message. So just to prepare you, John, these can be racist. These can be really profoundly bad. They can be dirty. We're just going to play them all.
We don't screen them.
We don't screen
Let me just start before you do this, just by saying that I disagree with everything you're about to hear, and I do not endorse any of it.
All
It's
right,
all
good.
on Sonny.
Good. That was a smart move.
That's very
sir.
brave of you.
Smart move. Coward.
Right off the bat. Just letting you know exactly where I stand right before we get going.
What a hero.
All right. Dumb, dirty, or racist? We'll find out. Here we go. Let's see. First one coming up.
Or
Hey,
funny.
Sonny, love your show. Glad to have you back. Here's a Hawaiian joke to welcome you back to the mainland. What do you get when you cross a hula hoop with a boxer? A Hawaiian punch.
Oh, Hawaiian
Pretty
punch.
good.
That's a good one.
Love it.
It's a good pun. All right, here's the next one.
Hey, Sonny,
Same
I
guy.
have one more Hawaiian joke.
Oh, okay.
Do you like the first one?
We
You'll
loved
love
it.
this one. What's the scariest day on the Hawaiian calendar?
October 31st.
Halloween.
A Halloween. Okay.
Halloween.
Oh,
Get
that's
it?
bad.
Uh-huh. All right.
That's made up. Like, I think he just made that one up.
I'm okay with not endorsing these jokes because they're not very good so far.
Okay, ready.
Sonny, I was offered this great job, but I don't know if I should take it. They're giving me $500,000. Ah, damn, I said it wrong. Jeez, I need to call back.
He said the joke wrong. He said the joke wrong, so he hung up. Okay, he did call back. Same number. Here we go.
That dude was a little creepy. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, he was trying to do a joke, I guess. Here.
Hey, Sonny, so I was driving back home from work, and a police officer stopped me, and he starts knocking on my window, and I just told him, "Officer, excuse me, just a minute, I'm on my phone."
Is that it? That's the joke. I actually did say that to somebody who, like, I was on my phone and I accidentally kind of cut them off and did something really stupid and they honked at me and I yelled out the window, "I'm on my phone." I did.
Brilliant.
I thought it was hilarious. I'm sure the lady that I cut off didn't think that was funny.
Yeah, you doubled down.
Yeah, I did. I thought I was making a joke, but anyway. Okay, one more.
I'm sure she thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, she was like, "Great, bitch." All right, here's the last one.
Hey, Sonny, it's BJ. I got a dirty joke for you. It's pretty dirty. Hope it's not too much for your podcast.
Uh-oh.
Anyway, here it goes.
Oh.
What does a 9-volt battery and a girl's butthole have in common?
Oh my God. What?
I know it's wrong, but sooner or later, you're going to put your tongue on it.
Oh, okay.
Anyway,
Okay.
good luck with your podcast. Bye.
Can someone explain what a 9-volt battery is and why you would put your tongue on that?
Oh.
I know what it is. I don't know why you put your tongue on it. That's
I've done that when I was a little
a
kid.
9-volt battery?
Yeah, you know how the plus and minus terminals are right next to each other?
Is that the kind you
So
put
when I
in
was
your
a kid, I
your
used to
fire
put my
detector?
tongue on it, and it kind of has a metallic, I guess you'd call it an electric taste. Yeah, I don't know. I always did that when I was a kid.
I mean, I've licked a battery before. Are we talking about the ones in the fire detectors? Is that a 9-volt battery?
yeah,
Yes.
they're rectangular, and the terminals are right next to each other. And so you can put your tongue on it, and you kind of got a circuit
So
going.
I think the point is that eventually you're going to accidentally, like, okay. All right, we're done with jokes. Alrighty.
If you'd like to
then.
expound more on that one, feel
Yeah.
free to go into depth there.
Not gonna.
Yeah, let's take a couple minutes here. Let's back up.
Let's back up. Okay. All right. If you want to tell us a joke for next week, call the number 707-681-5834 and we will play it on air. Obviously, we have no standards. So if you call in a joke, it gets played. Here's your chance. All right. All right, John, let's talk right-wing news. So do you want to set it up or I'll just set it up? Like you
set it up. I like your setup.
Okay, you had this really successful blog. I read your your article that just kind of said, hey, I'm shutting it down and here's why and what happened, just kind of a basic idea of what happened. And you're listing your numbers and just these millions of views and all these hits and stuff, and really successful blog. But over the course of like a year, they just squeezed you out. Facebook just killed you with their algorithm. They weren't, when you'd post things to your page, they wouldn't show up anywhere. So
that is largely true. Yes. Basically, right-wing news had an advantage. There were some other big Facebook pages before right-wing news on the right, but a lot of them people had not heard of. And this will be more relevant as we go into this. But like, I'll just give you a great example. IJ Review was at one time.
Yeah.
Well, at one time they were a top 5,000 website in the world, and nobody knew who they were.
Yeah.
It was the weirdest thing, because you would talk to people like, you ever heard of IJ Review? It's like, what's that? So they started hiring people like, Benny Arthur and some of the bloggers around that kind of thing, and doing things at CPAC to build up their name. Well, when right-wing news came along and we started really building up our Facebook presence, we really took off because people had actually heard of us. So we got very, very big, very organically. We didn't put a lot of money into it. We got up to almost 3.6 million people. And the amount of traffic we were doing was stunning. I mean, at one point, our absolute height, we did almost 23 million people in a month.
That's crazy.
It is crazy. I mean, we were doing, the same type of, traffic you'd see from like a lot of the big papers you've heard of out there. I mean, we were doing that little old right-wing news. So we're doing tremendous. We have a reach at one point in a month, and reach just means this many people went out and saw our page somewhere. Doesn't mean they clicked on it. It means they saw it. 130 million people. The Russian ad buy you've heard so much about in the media, where they just won't shut up about it, was 150 million. So we did 130 million in a week. So that just goes to tell you how small theirs was and how we were doing. But over time, Facebook, there were a number of things. I think they did not like the fact that right-wing news and other conservative sites were pulling in so many people. They did not like the fact that they were getting hammered over fake news, because what the left immediately did after they started talking about fake news is conflating everything on the right with fake news. Right-wing news is fake news, Breitbart's fake news, the Daily Caller's fake news, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you had all that going, and they just started ratcheting down our reach. And basically, what that means is 3.6 million people may have signed up for right-wing news, and they want to see right-wing news articles. But Facebook has an algorithm that determines what you see. And it doesn't matter if you signed up for the page if they don't let you see it. So they will just say, hey, these people are just not, they signed up for it, we're not going to let them see it. Now, you could go directly to the page, but the way Facebook works is everybody gets this stuff in their feed and they click on it. And that's how
people are consuming news these days. I mean, they use Facebook as an aggregator. And so you use your news feed as well as the trending news section as an aggregator for news for the day. And I used to go to sites, and I don't do that anymore, but now I'll go to other aggregators because I don't trust Facebook, but, like Drudge or something like that. But, do you think that they were specifically targeting you, or do you think it was their new rules and they were putting those rules into place maybe for political reasons because conservatives were so successful? I'm sure there were Democrats that were successful too. Or progressives, I should say, but maybe not as much. And certainly they don't need the online news the way that we do. Because if we don't get the news online, we don't even get the information.
Right. And there was a time when Facebook was bragging about the fact that, gosh, something like a quarter of the news people were consuming was going through Facebook. But a lot of that news was going through conservative websites. We were by far much more successful than the liberal ones. Just to give you an example of something I think we had a lot to do with, for good or ill, depending on how you look at it. I told reporters during the 2016 campaign, and I absolutely believe this, that we unlocked all these, what I like to think of as instinctive conservatives, all these people who they love God and they love guns and they love America, but they don't read National Review. They really don't know politics all that well. They're just sort of instinctually conservative and they really don't follow politics. Those people really were activated by Facebook. And those people, from what I could tell, loved Donald Trump. I mean, that was their guy for those kind of people. And I really think that's what pushed him through the primaries. I think it probably got him over the hump in some of these states. And I do think Facebook saw that. And they looked at it and they said, hey, this is dangerous to us. And so then when you started getting the Russian news thing coming out, you started hearing these liberal sites complaining about fake news. They just kept cutting and cutting and cutting. So we're not, I mean, conservative sites are not the only ones affected. I do think they did it to target us. In fact, what you see, and I can give you a lot of different reasons for this, but just recently, for example, they made this big announcement. This was what prompted us to go ahead and hang up the web page, that they were essentially saying they were going to get rid of pages. That's what they said. They took something like a $25 billion hit in the stock market when they did it because they're losing a lot of ad revenue. Just to give you an example, I know people, like I personally talked to them, who were putting $100,000 a month into Facebook.
Jeez.
So, those people, why bother anymore? So they're losing a lot of revenue. When they did that, they sort of backed off a little bit. And they said, well, listen, we just want all these people to talk to each other. We think it's depressing them to look at news and da-da-da, and to do things other than talk to each other. So what are they? They're
really just trying to be more responsible? Like
no,
this is what they believe is
no, because I'm going to tell you. There's a point I was going to go to. They immediately started pushing this video service they have, this watch service. They're competing with YouTube. Well, they push these things way up into people's feed, so they're constantly pushing these things through. I mean, a lot of these videos are getting over 1 million each on pages with 50,000 followers, so they're really jamming them out to everybody. They made an announcement they're going to be pushing more local news into people's feeds, and if you look at their trending news, which they have on the front of their website, it's almost all liberal sites. Now, There's occasionally have a few conservatives in there, but I mean, there are times there's 10 liberal sites. There's Raw Story, there's MSN, there's the New York Times, and every once in a while they'll sneak the Weekly Standard or something in there. But so they are still delivering talking to your friends stuff on the page. It's just they're getting it away from us. They don't want us out there giving our point of view. They want you to get news from the site, just the news that they want you to see.
Right. Well, that's obvious. And they're willing to shut down everything to do that? I mean,
yeah,
just for some kind of weird mission? I mean, it is going to lose them revenue. And ultimately, I think, and YouTube as well and Google, ultimately, the more they do this, they really put themselves at risk. MySpace used to be a thing too. And these things are digital. I mean, just as like right-wing news, it didn't take long to blow that up. Anything digital can just kind of go away. So I think that there's a lot of other pages that will be following us out. And I mean, I've talked to some people that are not in the best shape and some that are doing better. It depends. There's different things you can do. But just to give you an example, the sort of stuff that went on before they actually finally cut our throat there. I mean, I got kicked off Facebook something like, I want to say 12 times for short. And I'm not kidding. Like, and then when you were
things.
Kicked off, your page was shut down, right?
No. When I was kicked off, I could not post on the page. And I had something like 20 different people. So what I would do, because I was big enough, I had a Facebook contact, is I would go to my contact and say, hey, I've been kicked off for 3 days or 10 days or whatever it is, but I didn't break your rules. Here's the post they sent to me. It's not rule breaking. So she would look at it, and this happened every single time. She'd look at it and go, oh, they made a mistake, and it would be put back in. And I sat and thought, my gosh, what happens to all the people who don't have a Facebook contact that they can, pick up the phone? And by the way, I gave her very nice gifts just to make sure to my calls. And I'll give you another example. We have a secondary page called Click It Conservative News. That one's about 500,000 people. Well, at one point, that page gets kicked off of Facebook, goes out for 30 days. We get a 30-day suspension. So I reach out to my contact. She spends a full 2 weeks working on this, trying to get explanations. I keep giving her the runaround. And eventually what she comes back to me to is, hey, your page is down. I can't tell you why it's down. It's going to stay down for the full 30 days. And I can't tell you what you need to do to to keep it from going down again. So in other words, and you know what it had all over its page? Right-wing news articles.
Yeah.
So that's not my main page, but they just essentially said, hey, you're down for 30 days. We can't tell you why. We can't tell you what you can do to keep from going down again. And see, this kind of thing is stuff that liberals never have to deal with on Facebook.
Right.
They just don't. I mean, it's conservatives who deal with this. Now, they might, I've had people, let me put it this way, I've had people secondhand who talk to liberal pages. They can put whatever up there. They could put, Donald Trump's head, covered in blood, used as a bowling ball, and it's going to be fine. They're not going to get suspended. We're the ones that have to do it. And what I really think it is that Facebook for a long time really bent over backwards, to be fair. And I think they just got to a point where they felt like, and this is the same thing you see with Twitter, the same thing you see with other pages, they felt like they're monopoly. They feel like they've got complete control. So now that they're in complete control and they can do what they want, they're free to let their liberal side, react a little bit.
And they're getting a lot of political and social pressure to shut down conservatives. So
yeah, they are, and they're responding to it. And you're seeing this in other networks. I mean, YouTube has demonetized so many conservatives.
Every time I upload a video, it's demonetized, like out of the gate. I don't even actually finish. I hit the upload button and it's demonetized. And then I have to request a manual review, which I get, and then they'll monetize it, but that's days later. And it's okay. I've had my biggest, all my hits, because I haven't made any videos lately, but they're all the podcasts. So everybody's listening to it in the first few days.
Right.
And then I don't make any money, but I didn't make any money before. They pay shit. I mean, it's never been that for me. I think you put that stuff out there to try to, as a YouTuber I know says, there's shiny things that like attract people to you, and then you sell them on other ways. And so far, I haven't sold them in other ways, but that's
there are some people that are doing a lot. Like, for example, Prager University is suing YouTube because they're high production value videos.
We've talked about that. They're antitrust things. I mean, I don't agree with that, but I just I think honestly this is going to end for them. They think they're monopolies, but they can lose it. They will lose it. As soon as there really is something growing out there that's a viable alternative, the next cool thing. So
I agree. There'll be something where we, project our thoughts in other people's minds or something. And everybody will run over to that, and I'm sure that will happen. The only downside is that could be a while, and they really do have monopolies. They're huge
right now.
I mean, Google and Facebook in particular.
Yeah.
But isn't there, and I think Prager made this point too, and that if you have a stated policy and people build their business around that policy and they claim you violated their policy without being able to prove it, and in fact, not only can't they prove it, they're defying their own policy, you're suffering significant harms as a business. And they have a contractual obligation to uphold their policy. So why is that not a class action lawsuit?
Because you're not paying. You're not a customer. The customer is the advertiser. So that's what I've heard anyway. I don't know. It's really complicated legally. So I don't think you can sue for breach of contract because you don't pay. You're not actually buying anything. They're giving you this free forum. But it is really unethical. I mean, it's incredibly unethical to allow people to put all this time and effort into these things and then just yank it away from them for political reasons. And what's going on, John, with my Facebook page too is weird. It's not just that I'm obviously a victim of that same algorithm on a much smaller scale, but I am getting... I was out of work for like a long time. I started posting again in September, and my normal history with that is like I would post and nothing that I was making, but like memes and funny things, usually whatever jokes I could find that I found were funny. And I would slowly build likes based on that. And instead of building, I've been staying the same or losing ever since then,
sure.
Including after I started posting my podcast. And then I orchestrated a surge where I got a bunch of likes on a particular day. and through my friends. And I got a surge in unlikes. And when I look at the reasons for these unlikes, they're all fake unlikes. They're like Facebook generated. We had to cancel these unreal accounts. All of them. And so they are, and it's going with my likes. It's the more likes I get, the more unlikes I get.
Well, there are people too, and I absolutely, I mean, I can't prove this, but I absolutely believe it, who basically go to these pages specifically. That's their whole thing. I'm sure they're probably paid to do this, to go on these pages and report everything, or to unlike and to do whatever they can to be difficult. I mean, I definitely have seen that a lot on Twitter. I'm sure it goes on Facebook too, where you've got people that do that. So there's a lot of that kind of thing going on. I mean, I know also
the more I'm producing, the more audience I'm losing. That doesn't make any sense.
I saw the same thing with reach. It was funny. I mean, it's funny. You think, well, hey, how is it that at 1.5 million people, I've got 1.5 million followers. Now I've got 2.5 million, and my audience is much smaller.
Yeah.
How is this happening? But that's just what they're doing.
Doing it. Yeah.
And they're winning doing it. And Google and Facebook in particular are monopolies. They really are. I think they should be treated like monopolies. I'd love to see. Now, see, this is not something I'm sure all your audience would agree with. A lot of them would disagree. I think Google and Facebook are monopolies, and that I'd love to see Congress getting involved and making some threats and saying, hey, maybe you should be broken up, and letting them hear that kind of stuff. I really worry about a time that's going to come, and I think we're a few years off from it, but we're getting there, when most of the information people are getting is coming through algorithms written by liberals who don't like us and don't want people to hear what we have to say.
Yeah, I just don't think that's a permanent state. I just can't believe that's a permanent state. And also, the morality of the antitrust crap aside, which we're all against as conservatives. So I hate that we think that we have to use that to have free speech or whatever, have, the ability to communicate with other conservatives. But practically speaking, if you start regulating the internet like this, or these companies, you're just going to make it that much harder for the competition to break in with something new. I think these companies are going to be destroyed by this. And I think if we just wait it out, or, we find alternatives in the meantime, I don't know. I think they're going to lose.
I am all for finding alternatives. Anything you can do to get them out to more places, definitely do that. Like I say, I look at it a little different. I'm sure that most of your audience doesn't agree with that. I look at it as more of a monopoly type of thing, and at least Google and Facebook.
So what do you think if you were to go somewhere, like what you've done is you're now taking you're communicating, you're taking everything that you did, and you're now working for other established sites.
Sure.
That presumably have a different way of having followers. They're not as dependent on Facebook. Is that what's going on?
Right.
Okay.
Absolutely. I'm writing for PJ Media, for Town Hall, and there's some other places I'm looking at too. So that does help. And not everywhere is dependent on Facebook. A lot of places have legacy audiences, that kind of thing, where they've just been around for a long time, or memberships, or there are
all
some
these
other
guys with these memberships. Like, I'm so sick of buying memberships. Like, are you guys sick of buying memberships?
I don't think memberships are a viable strategy for most websites.
So many. Somebody bundle these suckers.
The only time I can see like a membership being an actual viable strategy is if you have unique content. Like the Wall Street Journal can make it work because they've got this unique,
I'm even talking about Wall Street Journal. I have a Wall Street Journal. I have a New York Times. I'm thinking about getting a CRTV. I mean, Milo just went behind a paywall. It's like, come on, everybody. I can't have $300 in paywalls every month. You know what I mean?
Well, I think there's a lot of people that would like to see you have $300 in paywalls. I mean, they're going. I think especially with these big. We're talking about the Mark Levin's thing and Newsmax and some of these other ones.
Well, like one of my, I love Gavin McInnes. I love Gavin McInnes, and I like Steven Crowder, I like Levin, and they're all on CRTV, and I like Michelle Malkin, And then all of a sudden, Gavin McInnes goes on CRTV, and I'm like, shit, now I've got to buy a CRTV. What? I liked him when he was on The Rebel because Anyway, but I'm interested in his new shows. I've seen some clips and I'm like, that is really funny. I love his commentary, but I don't know, man.
Those are tough. There have been more than one group that has tried. Like PJTV did try to do a TV thing. It didn't work. The Huffington Post tried and it didn't work.
Yeah, PJTV folded. They could not make money off the membership thing, and people weren't watching the shows. But the shows weren't very well produced either. I mean, let's be honest. I'm a PJTV person. I was on PJTV. And
I did not know you were one of the hosts on PJTV.
I was never a host. I was on there a few times. I was on a
guest. Yeah,
I was a guest commentator, as well as I filled in for Scott Ott once or twice or something on the. I forget. Yeah. Show, but
I remember that.
Yeah. So I wish it was still around. I would have more TV experience, and then maybe I'd be one of the hot chicks on Fox.
Hey, we could use that. Just be the hot chick on YouTube, start dressing a little skankier and just make that work.
Just show a little cleavage. I don't have to get naked.
I'm telling you, that's half of it. Just get a little skanky. You can make it work. I feel confident.
You guys are my advisors. You're my new marketing advisors.
You could address the nation's critical shortage of skanks on TV.
Yeah, if only I was more like Kim Kardashian.
I didn't ever do it because it was too cost prohibitive. I actually reached out to investors and never happened. But at one point, I wanted to do like a series of things where I would have hot chicks dressed in lingerie explaining stuff like, different economic principles.
I thought you were going to say get a sex change, but it didn't go that direction.
No. It was going to be, I figured I would hire some stripper.
Yeah.
Who would wear different super hot outfits
and read off a teleprompter.
And it would take 2 minutes. And to me, I thought that seemed viable.
That's funny.
People would love to watch that.
They would. Men would totally watch that.
Exactly.
All I heard was stripper.
Right, exactly. Here's Candy talking about the broken window theory.
Here's Sprinkles. Sprinkles has something to say to you all.
Supply and demand.
Well, they know that. They know that firsthand. You don't even need to write the script.
Right. The economics of the strip club.
Right.
You can learn everything you need to know about the market economy from the strip club.
This is Henry Hazlitt's second book.
the broken pole fallacy.
Yeah, good idea, John. So no one ever gave you any money for that?
Well, that was something I was not trying to do out of my pocket, so I was going to need some dough. But I don't have the same connections as Dennis Prager, apparently.
Those girls aren't cheap either. You'd have to pay them for their time.
I keep trying to convince conservative women to do this, and none of them will ever do it. So I understand that, but they could. Yeah. I'm telling you, it's still a viable strategy.
Do you think I'd lose all credibility if I did that?
Women always think that, and it's so totally and completely not true. It has nothing to do with credibility, really. The more people that how's Tommy Lahren doing?
You know what? These days you need a gimmick.
I'm just telling you,
everybody's reading the news on YouTube. So a little lingerie probably wouldn't hurt.
Lingerie would work.
Huh, it's interesting.
Listen, I don't hate Tommy Lahren, don't be wrong, but her entire career is based on, hi, I'm really attractive and I yell.
She sucks.
You say that, but what is she on Fox now? She had her show on The Blaze.
Yeah.
She's very attractive, with a lot of plastic surgery, very attractive.
Do you think she's had as much plastic surgery as Kylie Jenner, who doesn't look anything like she used to look?
I have seen pictures of her pre-plastic surgery, actually, which is I have. They're very interesting. She's much more attractive.
Can you get those online?
I have no complaints. No, I got someone from someone who really didn't like her, and they just showed it to me. It's one of the things I got at CPAC, special preview things. One of her colleagues at The Blaze who really despised her. Of course, that could be pretty much all of them. So
what happened over there? Was she really just
what I was told? Well, I was told she's the most annoying. And now, listen, I don't know her, and I don't really. If you want me to say, "Oh, you hate Tommy?" No, I don't have any opinion on her. Really, I don't really pay any attention to her stuff because what is she, like 23? I don't.
Yeah,
she's not going to teach me anything on politics.
Stupid girl.
Yes, but from what I heard, she was just incredibly difficult, and everybody could not stand her. And when they had that whole thing where she went on TV and essentially endorsed abortion, that was their excuse to get rid of her. That nobody liked her over there, and that's what happened. Yeah, well, once you're a star, you're a star. You get enough people who like you, somebody's gonna come up and give you some opportunity.
Oh, I found one. I found a pre-plastic surgery picture. No.
Wow.
No, it's a girl who says she looks like Tomi Lahren. She does look like Tomi Lahren. Maybe. No, you're right. She must have pulled all the pictures off the internet because I'm not seeing anything. There's nothing before.
Yeah. I'm going by what this person said, and they're very credible, and they would
saw
probably
the photos.
know. And I did see the photos, and they look legit to me.
Is she just plain? I mean, it's not like she probably has decent looks.
She was okay looking. I mean, like right now, I would call her very attractive now, where she was not, attractive. Where she was okay before.
Okay.
So, I mean, it wasn't like she was unattractive, but I mean, let's face it, you take those 2 points on that 10 scale off, and nobody knows who she is because that's life.
Well, maybe a little plastic surgery, a little lingerie, and I'll make my career.
Hey, I would watch.
Oh, I could never rant like that. It's just not in me. I find it so dumb. I hate those rants.
But isn't that what it's... I mean, that's so much of what we're all doing now. It's either like, you know what? Donald Trump is always right and everyone who criticizes him is a jerk. Or Donald Trump is always wrong and everybody who likes him is a jerk. Or you can be a squish who hates I'm a Republican who hates all Republicans. Or you can yell a lot and be attractive.
Yeah.
And lingerie, But just throwing that in there. But I'm just saying that's where we're at. That's politics today. It's horrible.
It's horrible. It's horrible. I'm going to pivot to the health industry. Start talking about paleo diets and things like that. All right. Well, we should move on to our next topic, which is these Obama portraits. Because, I mean, between this and the mainstream media fawning over this North Korean dictator's sister, she's also a dictator. She's like minister of propaganda. The left is really having a good week, I'd say. I mean, they're really doing their thing. And if they're not losing people with these two things, I don't know what. But the comedians should be covering these portraits and, with humor and making fun of the Obamas because they are absolutely ridiculous. And if anyone out there hasn't seen them yet, I can't even believe it because they're so ridiculous. There are memes everywhere now. The memes are hilarious. These paintings are the worst. And Jimmy Kimmel covered it. And his whole coverage of it was he set it up so that like, hey, here's the unveiling of Obama unveiled his portrait today. And then they played a clip of it. The curtain comes down and they had photoshopped the painting to be a picture of Obama skydiving with glasses on, being super cool. And the caption says, you're on your own, bitches, or something like that. So they changed it to make him cool. And then in the next moment, they said, this got me to thinking, I wonder what Trump's painting would look like. And then it became a Trump joke. Oh. So that's how they make fun of Obama. They don't.
Right. They subtly imply he's cool, or not subtly. They explicitly imply he's cool, then pivot to Trump hate.
Yeah.
That's what SNL did during his whole administration.
Yeah.
The joke was that he's cool and everyone else is stupid.
This is why, again, it's a Google, it's a Facebook. They're going to lose with this shit. I mean, it's just, if you cannot do good comedy, people are going to come in doing good comedy that are on the right, and the right is going to take over comedy.
Maybe. I have lost faith in the whole build a better mousetrap and the world will beat a path to your door thing. I don't believe that anymore.
Oh, that's so cynical.
I used to believe that. I really did. But, what I realized was, and this the example I used of the blogosphere was like, hey, when we got in there, it was a very open market. Now it's like a detergent market. I don't care if you come up with the best detergent in the world. If you're up against Whisk and Tide and Downy, they're going to beat your brains in. They really are. And that's kind of how it is. They've got so much money and momentum. But I'll agree with you. I mean, these paintings are terrible. You wouldn't even know Michelle Obama's painting was of Michelle Obama unless someone told you.
It doesn't even look like her. And
the Obama one looks like that thing you see on Twitter all the time of Homer Simpson disappearing into the bushes.
Yes.
That's what it looks like.
It does.
So
and that's one of the memes out there is like somebody did a gif of that chair and Obama disappearing into the leaves behind him.
Yeah, you see that and you see how they can't joke about Obama. They can't even make fun of him in a polite a friendly, okay, let's goof on him a little bit. They can't even do that.
No, they
can't. You
can't.
see how they talk about Kim Jong-un's sister.
Yeah.
And you just get to the point, whereas I don't like Trump. I don't want to give the idea that I like the guy. I actually left the Republican Party because I refuse to be led by any organization that Donald Trump's in charge of. But I look at this guy and it's like, these people are worse. They really are. It's
so
like, you know
much
what?
Worse.
I detest. It's like I detest Mike Pence so much. I would rather go out and say nice things about North Korea. And that's really what it comes down to.
They make us defend the indefensible on the right by being so bad. And more than that, it is their fault that we have Trump.
It is. And they look at us exactly the same way. I mean, all the things they say about Trump, they think the exact same things about you. They think the exact same things about me. The funny thing is there's a million things you could say about Trump, legitimate criticisms. And where they go with, well, he's a racist like all you Republicans. And it's like, oh, just, you always want to flip him the bird.
Yeah,
it's just like, oh, my God, that's your criticism, that Donald Trump is some kind of white supremacist. Yep. Donald Trump. Seriously, that's your thing.
Yeah.
That's where you're going to go with. That's your primary criticism. And if they say it about him, that's all they got. And it's ridiculous. And it's because they think the same thing about all of us. I don't know how. I mean, as much as I dislike Trump, I can never vote for any of these liberals. They hate me. I mean, these are people, I think half of them would lock me up in a gulag if they could get away with it.
They absolutely would. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the headlines for, so CBS headline on the Obama portraits is, Obama portraits make history and challenge norms. I'd say they challenge norms, wouldn't you?
Norms of art, yes.
Norms of art.
In the same way that Piss Christ challenges the artistic norms.
Right. Newly unveiled paintings of former President Obama and First Lady Michelle Obama are making history. Yes, they are, as the first official portraits to be commissioned from Black artists. And this is what I have to say about this. You guys, I feel bad for Black people now because this is the true, I'm feeling sorry for Black people. This is where they are victims. Their first Black president is a scam artist, corrupt, Banana Republic tyrant. And he's going to go down in history as that, whatever people think of him today. And these portraits are perfect examples of that. And these portraits are going to go down in history as being the worst presidential portraits ever made. And that's your first Black artist portrait. Congratulations.
Yeah,
well, you're not supposed to get into merit anymore. And this is the type of crap you come up with. You notice now, for example, they've realized, the Democrats, that Black voters are not going to turn out for a white candidate. So they're thinking we need another Black candidate, but they can't run anybody from any of the Black-only districts like Maxine Waters because they're all jokes.
Oh,
they're all
idiots.
goofballs. Yeah. So they got to find, all right, let's find a Black guy who is not from an all-Black district. So they're looking at, Cory Booker and Eric Holder's name's getting tossed out. I mean, that's what they're coming up with. Well, these guys they're not clown shows, like some of these other guys. Maybe we can shoehorn them in there. But, what about just picking the best people based on what they're doing? Do we have to go out and say, all right, well, we've got to have a Black artist do Barack Obama's painting? Do we have to? Do we have to go out and get the worst artist in the world and say, oh, this is great because they're Black? And I could even go with something like the Black Panther movie, which for all I know may be great.
I read a headline today that it's going to break all the box office records a week before it was released. That's what Variety is saying. They wish.
I don't know. Hey, you know what? I'm going to be honest with you. I never liked Black Panther. I thought he was a D-grade hero. I hope his movie's good. I'm not sitting here hating on it because it's going to be an all-Black cast. I'm not going to see anything that's a hero based on a vicious, nihilist, anti-American movement. No. I have to tell you that Wakanda in the comic books was ridiculous. It was they had super rocket spears. I mean, they were it was like an ancient, it was like a Tarzan movie mixed with technology.
That's just embarrassing.
And it's not like they haven't had Black superheroes before. Hancock, Spawn, Blade. You can go on and on. I don't know. It's just weird that we've got to get into this place where it's all got to be, okay, we've got to make these comic books. They've got to be all about some sort of racial message. Do they have to be? Do we have to slam it into everybody's face?
And honestly, though, there's another side of this. I mean, you can't tell me that there isn't a black painter out there who can actually freaking paint. I just don't believe it. I think it's got to be black, but then it's got to be like an activist, leftist. And those people make bad art. So the other story is this mainstream media fawns over a North Korean dragon lady. Here are some of the headlines from that. Kim Jong-un's sister is stealing the show at the Winter Olympics. The Ivanka Trump of North Korea captivates people in the South at the Olympics. These are all mainstream media headlines. CNN. Here's the Reuters headline. Head held high, Kim's sister returns to North Korea. And here's the first paragraph. A prim young woman with a high forehead and hair, half swept back, quietly gazes at the throngs of people pushing for a glimpse of her, a faint smile on her lips, and eyelids low as 4 bodyguards jostle around her.
Yeah, I saw a comment on that Reuters that said, "Whose head is she using?"
Yeah, that's a good response. Whose head?
It's an outrage.
North Korea's cheerleaders steal spotlight at Winter Games with synchronized chants. By force of a gun, they have synchronized chants, and we're admiring that.
I think so much of it. I think it's a combination of things where I think there's one group of liberals who just doesn't like America very much. And if there's anybody who's in opposition to America, they must somehow be a good guy in some way. You know, we're bullying them and forcing them. That's that Noam Chomsky way of looking at things in the world. Right. So you got that going on. And I think in combination with that, I think these guys are distaste for Trump is running so high with them.
That's what it is. They hate Trump so bad.
That's not it, because they've been doing this since Walter Duranty.
That's true.
You know, whitewashed Stalin's purges in the New York Times in the 30s. I mean,
that's right.
These are people that hate America, and they lionize leftist leaders, and they've done it for 100 years.
When have they ever gone after a dictator? When have they ever attacked a dictator? Really?
Only if there's a dictator who is considered friendly to America. Then they don't like them. Because there are some of those. Hosni Mubarak,
sure. Well, like let's take
some of these guys.
Putin was a great guy until they wanted the Russian thing to work. Now Putin is the scariest person in the universe.
Right. Right, and they do that absolutely. And in fact, it's funny. A country, they will judge how much they like a country based on how hostile they are to the United States often. It's a weird thing. But if you want to know, hey, why do they dislike Israel so much? Because you get a lot of that in the mainstream media where they don't like Israel. Why do they take the side of Palestinians? Well, Israel likes us. You know, and you can go down the line with that, too. There's a lot of weird little...
Well, yeah, think of the Palestinians. They love the Palestinians because the Palestinians are, quote-unquote, oppressed by the Israelis, yet another regime like the Saudis, who explicitly espouse the same sort of Muslim oppression as the Palestinians, you know, they would hate the Saudis, and they should, because the Saudis have a warm relationship with the United States. I mean, there's no rhyme or reason to it. The only thing that unites,
you're right,
and that explains their geopolitical positions is hostility to the United States. That's it.
What we're dealing with, folks. That's the mainstream media. That's crazy.
It's leftism, and it really is what goes on with the way a lot of liberals think. You can even see this in Obama's policies. You know, I mean, look at Libya. We overthrow Libya. Now, you know, granted, Gaddafi was a horrible person, but Gaddafi was cooperating with us. And that signed his death warrant right there, where it's someone like Iran who's telling us to go take a flying leap, they're kissing his butt. If Gaddafi had been hostile to us, he'd still be in power today. That's the ironic thing about it. I have not
thought of it that way.
I think of them like this, trust me. You'll see this pattern over and over and over again, whereas the countries that are friendly to us, they don't like so much. The countries that are hostile to us, they suck up to. It's sort of like, and you get a lot of this when you read Noam Chomsky, who I find interesting in a perverse sort of way, because everything in Noam Chomsky, you could just sum it all up with the devil made me do it and the devil's America. So every bad thing is the fault of America. America made the bad people do the bad things. And if there's something good America did, it's a trick for some other reason. That's their whole way of liberals have adopted that type of thinking.
So why do we hear that from libertarians so much? That's the interesting thing. The 9/11 was a response from our involvement in the Middle East, things like that. You do hear that from libertarians. That's unfortunate.
Well, I think there are certainly bad things that the United States does, and there's certainly contradictions or poorly thought out or bad policies that the United States has pursued and followed. And I think it's completely right to call those out. But I think what John's saying with respect to like Chomsky is that literally everything is America's fault. There's absolutely nothing that America could ever do that would warrant any kind of, positive evaluation. Whereas the libertarians have definitely picked up on some of that, but some of it is, I find some of it pretty legitimate. I mean, if you go and really study, unfortunately, geopolitics is very messy. I mean, there's not good guys and bad guys out there. And so, as a matter of foreign policy, sometimes you have to pick your poison.
Yeah, and I think you have to look at the big, full picture. At the end of the day, America's a good country, full of good people, make mistakes, but, in general, we have a free press. People find out about it. People pay the price, hopefully, unless your last name is Clinton, right? Or Obama. Anyway, I'm sure there are some Republicans that didn't pay the price too. I suppose we have just 5 minutes left. We should probably hit Jordan Peterson if we can. So I'm just going to give a quick overview of this chapter. That's a horrible segue, but here we go. 5 minutes left. So this book, for those of you who haven't read it, is Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. I went through Rule 1 last time. I'm going to do Rule 2 today. I'm reading this book now. I'm on Rule 5, but Rule 2 is treat yourself like you are someone that you care about. And as I was saying earlier in the cast, I've heard this rule before, treat yourself like a friend. Women are told this all the time. I think women have a harder time with this than men. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah.
Especially mothers.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think people in general.
You think men have a hard time, respecting themselves. And one of the things Jordan Peterson brings up right in the first paragraph is there's a percentage of people, when they get sick, they don't take their medicine. So
big chunk. Yeah.
It's something like over 30%. And he didn't say that it was, women or whatever. It seems evenly divided among the sexes. So these are people who just, not that they don't want to take their medicine, they just don't. People with diabetes who don't change their diet. I mean, easy fixes for some of these health problems that people just don't take care of themselves. And if it's so easy, why don't they do it? Why aren't they saving their lives? Or
it's not so easy. I think that's the real interesting thing to me, and John brought this up before, is why is that the case? What does he address that at all? What are the cognitive biases or the psychological impediments that people have?
He says that people don't respect themselves, that they don't actually like themselves. And so you have to stop the negativity. And he has some, he really actually relates a lot of this back to the Bible in this chapter, talking about everyone. You have to understand that everyone is flawed, including you. Everyone sins, including you. You need to give yourself a break. You're human. But he also talks about, this is where he brings in his chaos and order as life. These are the two fundamental experiences of life. And so an ideal life is where you're riding that edge. And he likes to bring up the Tao symbol, yin and yang, chaos, order. And the Taoists believe that you should ride along the edge of that. So you have chaos and order going on in your life at the same time. So that makes life exciting and interesting and fulfilling and meaningful without being too dangerous or too nihilistic or too chaotic that you get overwhelmed and have anxiety and psychotic breaks and stuff like this. So a whole bunch on that as how to create meaning in your life so that you are happier. But then there's a whole section on people not respecting themselves and altruism and, you got to love the sinner, which is you, and love yourself, which I don't know. John, maybe you just read the chapter, so maybe you have more to say about that.
Well, a couple things. One, I think a lot of times it's very hard to forgive yourself for doing things that you know better than, or the things that you know you should have done right.
Yeah.
Well, shame. I mean, I've been there. The things I've done that I'm ashamed of and I feel bad about. And I think we tend to be, it's very rare for us to forgive ourselves.
Yeah,
and
like
I mean,
even
that's
if
the
you're
whole,
on a diet and you eat the wrong thing, you go into a shame spiral.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, one of the most profound things I ever heard when I was a younger man was that you always do the best you can. And that sounds counterintuitive. Wait, you always do the best you can? No, you don't. Because, you think about the test. You got a 60 on it. You flunked it. Were you doing the best you can? Well, the thought process goes that you did a 60 because you didn't study. Why didn't you study? Because you weren't disciplined. If you'd been better disciplined, you would have studied and you would have done better. And that a lot of the failures in your life were just because, hey, that's where you were at that point in your life. And, as you get better and stronger as a person, you're capable of doing more. And it gives you a chance to say, hey, you screwed up, but you can forgive yourself and try to become better. And I think that's one of the things he's emphasizing in there, that, we ought to treat ourselves a little better. I've talked to friends of mine who are so mean to themselves. So mean. I mean, if you heard a friend say the kind of things that they said about themselves, you heard somebody just say that to them, you'd punch them in the nose. How dare you say that about my friend, but you'll say that about yourself.
Right.
And we do this, and it's unfortunate because if we treat ourselves a little more kindness, I think a lot of people also tend to think it's motivational to tell yourself, listen, you are stupid and ugly and an idiot.
How
and
could
you need to really shape up, you loser. And it's like, that is not motivational.
No, it's not motivating.
That is not. It does not push you higher. I think if people are kinder to themselves, push yourself very hard, but be kind to yourself. Realize you're going to fall short. And I think you can go a lot further when you do that. And I thought that was a good message for the chapter.
I've done this before. I mean, because I said I've heard this before, treat yourself like you would your friend. And there have been times in my life where I've actually mentally gone through the exercise of saying, okay, if my friend called me and told me what just happened, what I'm feeling really bad about, what would I say to her? Rather than like just beating myself up, because I think we all do that. We all beat ourselves up. And if it gets like extreme, especially if I'm really trying to accomplish some kind of goal, like I just pretend like I call my friend, she tells me my story. What do I say to her? So I think it's a good message.
But what about the other? Does he address this going the other direction, where you're not hard enough on yourself, or you're sort of evasive of maybe something you've done, where a friend might be honest with you and say, hey, why aren't you doing this or that? Or is it all from the perspective of, we tend to beat ourselves up?
I don't think he addresses that, but he does address that idea that you think that you need to be hard on yourself to motivate yourself. And that, and there's some truth in there that if all you're saying is, hey, I'm fine, I'm great, everything I'm doing is fantastic, you could end up just sinking into a loserville because you're not, why would you try?
Well, isn't the fundamental problem, it's just hard to be objective when you introspect about yourself? I mean, we have so many cognitive biases that prevent us from sort of seeing ourselves, objectively in terms of like evaluating what we're doing. I guess that's why people need help. Sometimes they need psychologists or therapists. I think
it's worse than just it's hard to introspect. I think it's hard to introspect, but more than that, like John brought up, we're really hard on ourselves. We don't respect ourselves. So it is it's a self-esteem thing. How do you feel like he integrated this chaos and order thing into this point?
See, I don't know that was all that valuable. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like some of his stuff I read and go, oh, that's pretty good. But a lot of it's just kind of extra. I think that maybe people look at it and go, wow, he's really deep. And I'm reading it and going, wow, that's a lot of extra BS he didn't need to add into the chapter at all. I mean,
I thought that could be an extra chapter to me, because I thought I don't really see how that relates to treat yourself like someone you care about. I think that's an interesting point in itself, because I do think that I mean, he gives actual normative advice. If you're finding yourself overwhelmed and in chaos, make more order. Do that by creating routines and things in your life that give you comfort. If you find yourself bored and no meaning and kind of depressed, give yourself a little chaos. Take some risks. So there's definitely a normative thing there that you could use in your life, but I don't see how that relates to the main chapter. And yet it was a major part of this chapter.
Yeah, he goes a little bit on tangents as part of his thing, and he does. And I think though that a lot of this stuff you can pick up from it, and I think most people have a pretty good idea despite their biases. I mean, like me personally, I don't see a psychologist, but every month or so I talk to a life coach. And basically, the nice thing, what I enjoy about a life coach is I can tell her everything that's going on, like all the stuff you can't tell a girlfriend, you can't tell your friends. And what I generally find is it's not that she's picking up all kinds of things I'm missing, but usually she'll have some good suggestion that comes out of that maybe she's looking at it from, having a third person perspective. And so some of that stuff I do think can help you and can make your life a little better.
I wonder if that's a really great idea. I wonder if a weekly call with a friend. I have a friend who did this productivity partner thing where every day they would call this friend. They had an arrangement with the friend. And for 10, 15 minutes, one friend would say, this is what I was doing. This is what's on schedule for tomorrow. And the other friend would say the same thing back. And they would call each other every day and do that and kind of hold each other. They called it like an accountability thing. And I thought that was like, I don't freaking want to do that for all the tea in China.
What's amazing to me, though, is that how many people work out physically as a routine, and yet how many people either through, because of the stigma attached with mental issues or psychological things, don't seek out either a therapist, a life coach, or friend or something to talk about that stuff. I mean, I think it's way more valuable and way more productive to talk to someone about these kinds of things.
To get a cheerleader, to have somebody like, yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, couldn't you have a friend like what John has in this life coach, but even just a friend that you call every week who just for 15 minutes hears about your week, here's what's going on, and then says to you like a friend, all right, you're doing great. Here's the positives. Okay, maybe you could work on this or that.
I don't know that it can be a friend. I almost think it has to be a professional service. Because your friends will never really tell you the truth. They feel bad. And so you need someone who's willing to be,
John, does your life coach like smack down the hammer on you sometimes?
Not enough. I try to encourage her to be meaner to me. It's, but I mean, it really does.
It's true. It's hard.
It's friends have a tough time doing that too. A lot of people, one of the things is it's like when you find that sore spot somebody has, they've got that little sore spot and it's a sore spot for them. And you've already, I'll find people sometimes I talk to and they will complain about the same thing over and over, but they really don't want to do anything about it.
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, if you're having this problem and you keep having this problem, why don't you just go do this? Well, stop telling me to do this. Well, I'm not telling you, but I mean, go fix it. And this is a female thing more than a guy thing, but women love to tell you about a problem they're having that they don't want to fix.
Yes.
And as a guy, your thought process just immediately goes, if a guy tells you about a problem, the first thing he wants to know usually is, how do I fix this and get this solved?
I know, but a lot of times women, so annoying, you guys. We're just trying to vent, and all you want to do is fix it.
Yes, exactly.
John, I've explicitly talked about this with my wife so many times that, look, if you tell me this, I'm trying to give you solutions. I'm trying to help you fix this. And it's really just a vent. They just want to go over it and over it and over it.
Which would be okay if they ever fixed it.
This is
it's like a month or 2 months from now, they're still got the same problem. And it's like,
where a girl needs her girls. This is why a girl needs to call a girl and do that kind of venting. But sometimes I do need to vent to my significant other. And I have to say up front, okay, I'm just venting. I just need to vent. Because if I don't do that, we'll end up fighting.
Yeah.
We'll end up fighting because he tries to help you.
Because he's wanting to help me and it's annoying.
Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Well, why aren't you doing this?
Right. And I'm like, you're lecturing me. Stop lecturing me. Yes. This is a problem.
See,
you
though,
guys.
it's these little differences that make everything work. It's why it's so fun.
Yeah.
You know,
I think that's why men like to talk to women, because when there are times when probably men need to vent, and if you go talk to another guy, the guy's going to say, "Well, why don't you just do this,
Yeah,
dumbass?"
not acceptable. You're a total weenie. You get 2 seconds before the guy is done.
I do not vent to women.
Oh, really?
No, if you're venting to, I mean, listen, if you're a guy, your job is to be a rock and to fix things. It's not to vent like a woman. If she wants to be a lesbian, she can talk to another lesbian, not a dude.
Well, you don't have like a girlfriend that's just a platonic friend that you could vent to and not have to be so...
I have platonic female friends, and the life coach is actually female, but no, I don't vent to them about anything.
I think that's reasonable.
All right. Well, we've learned a lot here today. Rule 3 is make friends with people who want the best for you. That seems really obvious, and I look forward to talking about that one next week. That's it for our show. Thank you, John, for joining us. It was super fun having you. How can people keep track of you now that Right-Wing News is still up, by the way?
It is up. It has not gone down yet. I'm putting stuff out right there. But if you want to follow, you can follow all my writing on Right Wing News. But you can also go to townhall.com and PJ Media. And, of course, if you want to follow it in the more evil way, Twitter, John Hawkins, RWN.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody out there, for joining us. This podcast and all my work is fan-funded right now. If you join my Elite Squad, that's the Elite Squad, you'll get access to our private Facebook group. There's mugs. We have a t-shirt coming out. So yeah, if you'd like
lingerie pictures of Sonny.
That's right.
Maybe I'll start there. I'll start there.
Behind the scenes,
I'll test it with the Elite Squad. If you'd like to be an Elite House of Sunny Squad member, go over to patreon.com/House of Sunny. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for listening to the House of Sunny podcast. Go check out Sunny on YouTube at her channel, House of Sunny. Everything Sunny does is fan-funded, and because she's likely to get kicked off and demonetized on every platform at some point, please support her over at patreon.com/House of Sunny. Become one of Sunny's Elite Squad and have access to behind-the-scenes footage, t-shirts, special events, and more.